Well, as I'm beginning part 2 of this particular series, I wanted a name for it. And I just said, Thoth, please just give me a name. It's too hard. I can't figure it out. There's so much involved here. What do I call it? And he said, call it the singularity. Later, he added the word true. But first, he just said singularity, the singularity. Now, I've heard of the word referred to something cosmic, but I didn't even know what that was. So I Googled it, the singularity. With the word the, he used the word the in it. And here's what I get. If you read any science fiction or futurism, you've probably heard people using the term singularity to describe the world of tomorrow. But what exactly does it mean? And where does the idea come from? We answer in today's Backgrounder. This is something on the web called, I don't know what it's called. Anyway, what is the singularity? The term singularity describes the moment when a civilization changes so much that its rules and technologies are incomprehensible to previous generations. Think of it as a point of no return in history. Most thinkers believe that singularity will be jump-started by extreme rapid technological and scientific changes. These changes will be so fast and so profound that every aspect of our society will be transformed, from our bodies and families to our governments and economies. So it goes on and on about this, but you get the picture. Now, some of it, what I'm reading here, even talks about, transhumanism, that machines will take the place of humans, and that's all part of the singularity as well. So Thoth added the word true, the true singularity, meaning that that's not where we're going, but we are changing to a point that would be incomprehensible to past generations, even to this generation in many ways. And so we're hitting that point of no return. We're coming up to it. So that's why he wanted me to title this The True Singularity. And so be it. So now I'm going to be reading the next part in all of this, which I have entitled The Ninth World. Incidentally, all that I'm reading here is from issue 396 of Temple Doors. I'm going to be talking about new things too, but we have to get some background before I can go much further into the new. So this is entitled The Ninth World. Thoth speaks to us of a divine object housed within the etheric counterpart of the Great Pyramid, the Temple of the Lion, which he calls the Temple of the Morning Star. Within the Temple of the Morning Star, anchored into the Temple of the Lion, is a cube of transmuted gold known as the Adonai Kodesh, among other names. Long pause here, just a moment. This cube is hollow, containing within it a sphere made of crystal sophra, which is a very pure form of crystallized white powdered prima matra. This is not glass. The sphere is somewhat the color of golden topaz. While the surface has been highly polished, the interior of the crystal shelters many natural points that project inward to a hollow center. This center is the Silab, or still point, for the Adonai Kodesh. The cube sphere is most sacred and was transported to this world from Orion 109 million years ago. That would be from the data, I guess, of 1996. In the Temple of the Morning Star, it is positioned directly within a blue hole. A blue hole differs from a black hole in that the former is responsive to sentient consciousness control, and the latter is not. Nor is it a blue needle, which is a funnel for light transport within molecular structure. Blue holes are instead whole fields of transfer, which align to specific space-time vectors. The Adonai Kodesh is a source translator in that it translates master intelligence programs and then encodes them into what we will call here continuum bars of light. The continuum bars are frequency codes which define and transport packages of sacred language from one matter source to another. Much of the purpose and function of the Adonai Kodesh is beyond the mental grasp of the second millennium thought, so we will not attempt to go into too much detail in regard to it. It is only necessary at this time that you comprehend the following. The Adonai Kodesh is a urmemet, urmemet chamber. I swear to you, that's what it is. Even more essential to the transformation of the world than is the Ark of Grace. Aha, and the Ark of Grace is right over here. It was created by master intelligences assisted by the seraphim 20 billion years in your past, applying as your linear count, and brought to Earth 109 million years ago. Okay, let's just put on the brakes for a minute and take a look at this. So the Adonai Kodesh is in the Temple of the Morning Star, which is a higher etheric temple over the Temple of the Risen One, which we know as the Pyramid of Giza. And it is even more key, essential to the transformation of the world into the new earth dynamic than is the Ark of Grace, which is setting right up here, interdimensionally speaking, inside the crest in the stone mountain that's right out my window here. Now, what I'm being shown is that the Adonai Kodesh is sending direct signals into the Ark of Grace, now having its monosari open, like a flower of life. The monosari is the sphere between the two wings of the seraphim, and this is open now like a flower of life. It hasn't been until it came into the thresholding chamber, and even right away it wasn't. It took some time, but now it's really open and functioning. So it's receiving directly from the Adonai Kodesh chamber of the Temple of the Morning Star. Now we go back to the seraphim. It says it was created, that this chamber was created by the seraphim and, 20 billion years in your past, whatever. So I also believe, and I don't have the material right in front of me, but that the sacred On, which was delivered to the planet Earth in a point in Tibet a long time ago, was also a product, so to speak, of the seraphim. And of course, then we have the Helioseraphis. These are the seraphic beings that I'm being told are now coming back to work with us through this portal. So it all fits together. And this material was written in 96, of course. Again, we have some letters missing here in this text. Something human being to spawn a separate light form from their natural light body, which is what we call a zeta body. Many human. Now, I don't know what that is, but I know what the zeta body is. Let's continue with that. The zeta body is not in direct spirit to matter alignment with the second millennium incarnated form, but is rather a double of first, third millennium, past and future realities, wave creation. Wave creation is a path that is created when two similar yet separate realities have occasion to touch, or more appropriately, to know one another. This forms a wave bending back on itself from both directions, meaning that it is bent by both realms of sentient consciousness. In this way, a dipole of an event is created. A zeta body then acts as an extension of the wave creation, in this instance between the first and third millennium. Somewhat like a time traveler, it can carry light codes through the portal between the three realities, bringing a stronger coupling to the building charge of their shared wave creation. Now, I know we've got so many bodies going on here. We've got Zohar bodies, we've got Solarian beings, we've got pure gem bodies. These are all quantum dynamics of one big pizza. They're different slices of the same pizza. But the zeta body is something that we can flash in and out of and not even know it if it's in little micro units. So let's continue here. Usually a zeta body arises from a second millennium incarnated form, arising from a second millennium incarnated form can only be sustained for a small period of linear time. Now, let's get into this millennium business. This is very confusing, and I wish to gosh that when Thoth had presented me with the word millennium for these first and second and third, that I had said, no, Thoth, let's don't use that word, because everybody thinks of a millennium as 100 years. And he's using it differently, and I'm not even sure why he's using it. But it's not one that he was accommodating me on. It was one that he brought to me. But he's not talking about 100 years. He's talking about some kind of metric system of time that separates away, we're on timelines. We're on these waves of time. And not even timelines, separate waves that have timelines within them. One wave was the first millennium. Then we broke away from the Rana time wave, which is the true flow. We got out of alignment with it. We can't break away from it, but we got out of alignment with it, which created the second millennium. And when we get back in alignment with it, going into the new Earth star, we're into the third millennium. So that's what he's talking about here. So let's go back. Usually, a Zeta body arising from a second millennium incarnated form can only be sustained for a small period of linear time. In most cases, the consciousness of the individual is not even aware that such an activation has taken place, although she will certainly experience some sensation of the event. Their higher self has in effect agreed to act as a transducer for this experience. Such occurrences happening for an individual unconsciously are rare, but it is even rarer, particularly within the last 5 centuries. When an individual embodied within the second millennium is consciously informed of this process. Let me read that sentence again. That didn't make sense. Their higher self has in effect agreed to act as a transducer for this experience. Such occurrences happening for an individual unconsciously are rare, but is even rarer, particularly within the last 5 centuries, when an individual embodied within the second millennium is consciously informed of this process. Yet this will come to pass with greater frequency as the world moves toward its appointment with the third millennium ascended reality, the new Earth star. So that's a very complicated paragraph. Let me try to bring it down to earth a little bit here. What he's saying is that we're going to have more and more experiences where we become Zeta. They're just tiny, minute little fraction moments, but they make a big difference in our lives and our paths and what timelines we're choosing and everything we're intending to do and be. And more we're going to feel out of body, out of time, disoriented. And when we come back from that moment, we might have headaches, we might feel nauseous, we might, feel like we're having the flu or just plain nuts because we've gone through this time leap, and it's not just a time leap, it's a bending back on 2 different reality zones. But it has a purpose. It's not a hiccup. It has a purpose, and it's getting us ready to do the ultimate singularity trip. He explains the process involved whereby the Adona Kodesh, remember that's that chamber there up in the Temple of the Morning Star, would cause a current human to create a Zeta body. And this is what he's saying. The command for this causation would come from that soul's first, third millennium beingness. And remember, we're in the second. Our awareness is right now anyway. The first, third millennium beingness, thereby circumventing the fractured subsystem. However, the second millennium experiential role must outpicture a portion. My voice just went up 6 octaves there. Sorry. Oh my goodness. The dry weather here is really getting me. That sounded so funny. Let me try. Oh gosh. No, please, Maya, don't go into a giggle fit here. This is not a good time for it. Let me try this again. However, the second millennium experiential role must outpicture. Oh, I'm losing it entirely. Just a minute. Okay. I'm going to be serious now. Must outpicture a portion of the dynamic, for in doing so, it projects itself into the true reality on some level of its multiple existence within the fallen condition. Understand that the second millennium experience is entirely the result of first millennium consciousness attempting to bridge the gap into third millennium. That's really important because that's where we're living. We're living in second millennium. I mean, as far as we're aware and everything. So our whole existence in the second millennium is simply a result of trying to bridge the gap between the first, which was the true flow, and the third, which is getting back to true flow. We're just hanging on. We got our toes on one cliff and our fingernails on the other. And that little bridge that's, it's that shaky little human bridge is our second millennium reality right there. The Adonai Kodesh works as a translator for endogenetic exchange between the evolved species of man and cetacean. Now we bring the cetaceans into the picture. Thoth says, all cetaceans, but most especially the dolphins and orca whales, integrate their life wave with the Sephirothic template. They hold open the scroll between the human and Davic domains for the perpetuation of the Sephirothic template throughout the spectrum of the planetary life wave. Since the separation of the two kingdoms at the end of the Hyperborean epoch within the cetacean link, the Davic kingdom would have withered, for it would not have had the holographic codes necessary for the streaming of the angelic realms into it. Through the Sephirothic template via the cetaceans, the Davic kingdom is sustained. Even though the high She are angelic Davic beings, they cannot embed their integration into the earth since the end of the Hyperborean epoch without the aid of the holographic brains and soul light service of the cetaceans. Now, he's not really leaving the poor little whales out of this, but the whales vibrate at a very deep frequency and hold to the core of the planet. They hold the core of the planet together, basically speaking. I mean, maybe that's a tad exaggeration, but that's sort of their MO. Whereas the dolphins and the orcas are operating on the higher frequency of the pinging off of these planetary life wave codes as they enter the cosmic frequency. Something like that. Conversely, the cetaceans are futurized forms of human evolution. Understand that they are not the only form humanity will assume in the future, but they contain components of one of these futurized geometries. The dolphins and orcas mirror the most evolved path this particular sacred patterning will take. Well, if that's the case, somebody ought to tell the orcas to stop eating those precious little seals. I don't really understand that part. Okay. The Adonai Kodesh leads common intelligence within the cellular experience to nest within an envelope of interspecies mind. Now he explains the connection between the Adonai Kodesh and the Adam Kidmon. The most ancient appropriate spelling of Kodesh would be Kadesh. Thus, Adonai Kadesh and Adam Kidmon both contain ADKA in the first two letters of each word. This is significant as the ADKA in the angelic fire language, when translated into human vocables, is the stimulus for the protosynaptic charge in the human element, a charge which is necessary in the restoration of the Adam Kidmon. Okay, I'm going to pause for a moment because I want to look something up, provided I can even find my pause button. Well, I actually did find protosynaptic, but it was promosynapses, but it's so complex. I don't really want to go off into it, but it has to do with the gaps between two cells as the charges come together. So it kind of relates. Well, it does, obviously, what he's saying here. Anyway, to continue, the Adonai Kodesh is the resonant alchemical formula created as an integrative template of the Adam Kidmon. The mantra to awaken the Ad-Ka within the human body and thus to tap into the Adam Kidmon through the Adonai Kodesh is Ad-On-I-Ka-De-Shai. I'm going to spell that. A-D-O-N-A-I-K-A-D-E-S-H-A-I. There is a procedure accompanying the chanting of these syllables that would create a true rite of passage, but we do not wish to divulge that at this time. Nevertheless, simply chanting this mantra over and over while centering the sound in the heart and third eye, accompanied by the correct spiritual intent, would aid in transforming certain amino acids necessary for the quickening of the Ad-Ka. That's very interesting. The guardians of the Adonai Kodesh see it as an entrance or gateway to the ninth world, which is the world of the all-being, what Thoth Tehuti calls the Atasic universe. This is a universe beyond duality and polarity. 9 is the sacred number of the alchemical threshold beyond cause and effect, and as such is a magical call to grace. And that's the end of the article. Well, I'm going to conclude here for part 2. And part 3 is going to be basically new stuff, sort of bringing all of this together, and it'll be a shorter version, but I just want to bring it into focus with what's going on now a little bit more. So here we conclude part 2 of the true singularity.